Before we start, this video contains references to bullying, discrimination, homophobia, and transphobia in the past and now. For more information and ways to get support, visit the TutorEagle website at www.tutoreagle.co.uk or speak to someone you trust, like your teacher.
June is Pride Month, where people all over the world come together to celebrate LGBTQ+ people and raise awareness for inequalities that still stand today.
People across the world, from London to Los Angeles and Madrid to Montreal, more than 32 million people come together to celebrate and promote social acceptance, achievements, legal rights, and pride.
These parades seek to create a community and honour the history of the movement.
Most Pride events occur annually, with most of the next ones happening in 2022 because of lockdowns and COVID-19 restrictions worldwide.
So let's look at a short history of Pride and what we can do to support people in the LGBTQ community in this video, made in partnership with Stonewall UK.
In the 1950s and 60s, the world was an extremely repressive place for LGBT people, with two organisations, the Daughters of Bilitis and Mattachine Society, coordinating the earliest demonstrations.
The Stonewall riots began on the 28th of June 1969, when the LGBTQ customers of the New York City's Stonewall Inn resisted police raids on a bar.
The police forced over 200 people out of the bar and onto the streets, then used a lot of violence against them.
One of the key figures who stood up to the police during the raids was Marsha P. Johnson, an African-American gay activist and self-identified drag queen.
During the Stonewall riots, Marsha was 23 years old.
Marsha resisted arrest, but in the following days led a series of protests and riots demanding rights for LGBT people.
Much like the recent Black Lives Matter marches in the United States, these protests spread worldwide, encouraging others to join protests and fight for equality.
A month after the protests, the first openly gay march took place in New York. This was a pivotal moment for people everywhere.
Even though the Stonewall riots kick-started this wave of support for the LGBTQ+ community, there was still a lot of discrimination against them. Homosexuality was decriminalised in 1967 in England and the rest of the UK by 1982. However, homophobia is still widespread in the UK.
Before this, famous people like wartime codebreaker Alan Turing were charged with gross indecency for being gay.
A law enacted in 1988 by Margaret Thatcher's government stopped councils and schools promoting the teaching of the acceptability of homosexuality as a pretended family relationship.
These were the words that Margaret Thatcher actually used, and it meant that schools weren't able to step in when homophobic bullying took place, even if it was outward and blatant.
Section 28 of the Local Government Act also meant that a lot of teachers felt that they couldn't step in.
Many students didn't get the support they needed and the education that was relevant to them, and didn't get any advice about what a healthy relationship looked like.
There were mass protests by LGBT campaigners for almost 20 years after the law was stopped in Scotland in 2000 and the rest of the UK in 2003.
Homophobia and transphobia still exist in the UK today. So what can we do to help change this?
Firstly, let's look at what the terms mean. Homophobia is the fear or dislike of someone who identifies as or are perceived as gay.
Transphobia is the fear or dislike of someone who is or is perceived as transgender.
The main word here is perceived.
That means you don't have to be gay or bi or trans to be a victim of homophobia or transphobia.
The main thing we need to remember is that being LGBTQ isn't a preference or a lifestyle choice. When we talk about gender or sexuality, we're not talking about choices people make.
Nearly 50% of lesbian, gay, bi and trans people are bullied in schools, and is more common than any other type of bullying. 97% of students report regularly hearing homophobic language in school.
Only a quarter of schools have a code of conduct on homophobic, biphobic, and transphobic behaviour, but in 65% of cases the policy isn't even properly enforced.
Recorded reports of homophobic abuse in the UK have increased from 5,807 in 2014 to 2015 to 13,535 in 2018 to 2019. That's more than doubled.
Previously, until 2020, it was even unclear whether staff at the BBC were allowed to attend Pride events, following changes in guidelines about impartiality.
One of the first things you can do is check whether your school have a specific rule or policy against homophobic, biphobic, and transphobic bullying.
If they don't, ask why. If you're being bullied, speak out. Speak to a teacher or a member of staff you trust, or speak to a friend.
There are many different types of bullying. It includes name-calling, spreading rumours, pretending someone doesn't exist, physically or emotionally hurting someone, and cyberbullying. And in most cases, all of these are illegal.
It's important to remember that you can experience homophobic bullying whatever your sexual orientation is. So talking to a teacher doesn't mean coming out.
If this bullying spills over into threats or violence, you need to report it to your teacher, the police, or speak to Childline. Many police forces in the UK have a specialist unit to deal with these incidents.
If you're being bullied online or via social media, take screenshots and keep them as evidence to show your parents or the school.
If you've called someone gay as a negative comment, ask yourself why.
Have you said, "That's so gay" before? Let's be honest, it's probably not.
Think of it as saying to someone, "You're so black," or "You're so disabled." It doesn't sound too great now, does it?
If you hear homophobic abuse, speak out. No one should have to put up with any type of abuse.
And finally, remember that it's not bad to be different, and that everyone is different in their own way. We've got more information available on the TutorEagle website at www.tutoreagle.co.uk/LGBT and on our podcast.
But for now, this is Adrian and Socks in partnership with Stonewall, signing out.